Salam, buongiorno, guten tag, aloha, konnichiwa. Viva Sasandugu, and my personal favorite, Assalamu alaikum. It is great to be with you today, and today's Mesearch topic is, what is non-binary? So let's get into it.
You're neither male nor female, right?
That's true. I identify as non-binary, which means that I'm neither male nor female, and correspondent to that, I use the they, them pronoun.
And you say gender roles are damaging our society, so we need to think very carefully about language, yeah?
Yes. So a lot of our social selves are codified and encultured in the language that we use. We really use it to construct our entire society. And what's certainly true is that there is a huge variance of gender presentation and gender identity within humankind. There isn't simply
humankind,
men
you said,
and women. Exactly, humankind in place of mankind.
You wouldn't say mankind, that should be, you know...
I wouldn't, just because humankind is a more accurate descriptor, in the same way that me using they, them is a more accurate descriptor of my identity than using he or she.
Would you use homo sapiens?
I very rarely in my life use scientific language to describe the people I work with.
Wise man, it means. Okay, but it's something, do we need to think about that?
I think we should be
Reclassification in biology.
thinking about the evolution of language to support gender neutrality.
Yeah, got you.
And that's for a number of reasons. The first of which is that it stops this assumption that either the most important people in the room are men or that the only people in the room are men. And secondly, it does include that wider spectrum of gender. There's an excellent quote by a German linguist, Louisa Pusch, who says that gender and language should be both comfortable and fair. And she was referring to German, which is one of the most strictly gender-codified languages in Europe.
German.
And English is not...
What's happening in German?
So German has a grammatical gender and a gendered pronominal system. So they use gendered pronouns and they have gendered nouns, and that's supported by the wider grammar of the language. But actually the German state is encouraging lecturers, professionals and industry to use gender-neutral language.
God, I might
a
have
great
got an A
example
if that had been back.
is in students. Well, so in universities, a bit like the University of Hull, universities in Germany, their lecturers are using gender-neutral language to refer to students because it's inclusive of everyone and gives that space for trans people who are neither male nor female.
Yeah, it's a matter, Andrew, there you go. It's a matter of courtesy, this, and sensitivity, isn't it?
Courtesy is all very well. I mean, you're describing encouraging people to use certain words. My problem is when words are policed, when language becomes police. That is my problem. I mean, look, we can all get back to... We can all go back. Those sorts of things, humankind or mankind, I mean, those are sort of interchangeable now. They're synonymous anyway. We're talking about when people actively, and it is a minority of activists, it really is a minority, seek to have people disciplined or sacked because they refuse to use language that they are imposing. That's not the evolution of language, that's the imposition of language, and I think that's problematic.
I think it really depends on the context. So you may, for example, that's perfectly grammatical.
But I wouldn't say, you hear what it said. That's rude, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say that it is dehumanising.
Yeah.
It shouldn't ever be a voice for the entirety of the trans community. Some people may self-select to use it, but it in general is quite a dehumanising approach.
Isn't this actually bad for women? The suffragettes would be appalled about this, wouldn't they?
Well,
they want women to be noticed.
They
want women to be out there. They want women to achieve and for other women to know that they have achieved.
It's really about
What about people who are non-binary? What about people who are gender fluid?
We're all male and female. We've always... Yes, of course, we're all male and female. There are
what about transgender people?
There are a tiny minority of people who have intersex conditions, and there are a tiny minority of people who have some condition where they may have a female brain and a male body. Apart from this, we are all male and female, and the attempt to suggest that there is a third gender is, as far as I'm concerned, it's an ideological and a political project. It doesn't exist. The words male and female have existed throughout history, throughout the world. They refer, men are people who have penises, women are people who have vaginas. It's as simple as that. I would absolutely refuse to refer to this woman here, who's clearly a woman, as a they, because for me that would be imposing an ideological political system. Because she is. If everybody watching this programme can see that she is a woman. And that is imposing.
That's your problem. I think that's actually your
imposing.
problem. But you're imposing.
No, you are asking me to engage in an ideological political system which I disagree with. I believe we are all male and female.
And by what they should be called is imposing an ideological system.
No,
I really want to come back and address just some of the scientific inaccuracies.
Your respect for me is already diminished if you insist that I ascribe to some ideology of third gender which I do not agree with. If this he and she is socially constructed, how come everybody watching this, everybody in the audience, can basically identify male and female just by looking? Occasionally there are people who are more difficult to identify and we try to be tactful, but it's not just socially ascribed, it relates to a physical reality reflected in our voices, our appearances, in all kinds of ways.
Isn't life a great spectrum? No?
Grammatical gender is the concept found in about a quarter of the world's languages that you can sort all nouns into male or female, le or la in French, de, die or das in German. The das is for neuter. In Zande, which is found in a few countries in Central Africa, there are 4 grammatical genders: human male, human female, animate and inanimate. There are even occasional languages with more complicated systems than that. Now, I'm a descriptivist linguist. I am not meant to judge whether language features are good or bad. I'm just meant to describe what they do. But grammatical gender is just such a stupid concept. I sort of hate myself for saying that, but it is really silly. So that's a computer, is it, French? A computer, so it's male. All computers are male. And that's a bottle, French, really. So it's female. All bottles are female. Really. Should I dress it up in a friggin' pink apron and give it a rolling pin as well? Descriptivism. Don't judge. I'm exaggerating. I am exaggerating, but I genuinely have tried searching the literature for any advantages of grammatical gender. There's only one vaguely convincing argument, which is that it can help clear up ambiguities and speed up recognition of words by a small amount. Okay, but 3/4 of the world's languages manage just fine without it, and meanwhile, grammatical gender causes a heck of a lot of problems. First problem, it affects the way you think. When asked to describe a key, German speakers, who classify key as male, were likely to associate it with words such as hard, heavy and jagged, whereas Spanish speakers, who classify key as female, were more likely to say it was golden, intricate and little. That also says a lot about gender roles in society, but my word, that's something I am not qualified to talk about. Second problem, it's really clunky. Job adverts in languages with grammatical gender have to either use both terms or a half-assed marker to clarify that they're asking for anyone. Which brings me to English. English doesn't have grammatical gender. It used to, in Old English, and we've still got a couple of words like blonde and blonde that change depending on gender. But we don't have to worry about filing everything into one box or another. But what we do have is the third-person pronouns he, she, and it. And that is a problem. If I want to refer to you, the viewer, I have to use the pronoun he or she, which is ludicrous for several reasons. 1, it's an unwieldy 3 syllables, and it sounds awful. 2, there are folks who don't fit into or don't want to declare as either of those categories, and if that surprises you, you need to get out more. Since it is a bit dehumanising, there's really no suitable English pronoun to use. Except, English does have a solution, and lots of people are using it, and a lot of the old stick-in-the-mud folks hate it. The answer is they. Facebook is using they. I signed up to Facebook before they started asking for gender. I've never actually told them that I'm a guy. So my friends see Tom Scott updated their profile picture. And you know what? That sounds absolutely fine to me. It just seems normal now. It's going to depend on your dialect whether it sounds good to you, but brace yourself because singular they is spreading very fast. But you didn't even notice when I used it in the very first sentence of this video. And it's got history. Even Shakespeare used it. Better yet, because they sounds natural, it gets around the problem of trying to force invented pronouns into English, which, let's be honest, has never actually worked. So there you go. I've gone against my descriptivist training and said that one linguistic trait is better than another. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because some people are they. Get over it.
Talk about gender norms here.
That's right.
So I would love to ask, how has society associated girls with pink and boys with blue, and what's the history behind it?
It's a very interesting question, and I'm going to answer that. So, a little tee up. So, we all know boys are blue and girls are pink, and what many of you don't know, which I didn't know until recently, was how this started. So, I'm going to go first. Oh, there I am. There's me in a skirt. Here we go. Let's talk about pink. So pink originated in the mid-18th century, and it was a color that was bought to Paris, France, which was the fashion capital of the world. And it was done not as something around gender, but just done as aristocracy. So it was a color of aristocracy. So you see men and women alike wearing the color of pink. And it stayed that way for a few hundred years. It wasn't until the early 1900s in the United States that department stores in the US started coding baby clothes, and they started using pastels, and the pastels were light shades of pink and light shades of blue. And originally it was the thought that blue was prettier and pink was a derivative, a watered down version of red, and red was a color of power. And of course, at that time, power was male. So it started to move in that direction. Around the same time, World War II had happened, and a large number of men went off to fight the war, and women went in to fill their space. And as men came back, they wanted to reclaim their jobs, but there were women sitting at their desks and in their positions. So there was this interest to try to get women out of the workforce, and they needed an opportunity to do that. So in 1953, Mamie Eisenhower wore a pink dress to the inauguration, and it was a moment where marketers kind of jumped on it and captured that moment to say, women back in the kitchen at home and men back in the workforce. A few years later, this young girl was born. 60 years ago, Barbie became a definition of what we think girls should look like and look like, which is body dysphoria at its best. And the pinkification of America began. The color blue is decidedly less interesting because pink went off to girls, blue went to boys. I thought I'd share with you one of my favorite pictures from the Met. This is an impressionist and it's about 120 years old. And what's so interesting about this picture, for me anyways, I looked at the words and it was a mother with her son and her daughter. That in the late 1800s, up until early 1900s, boys wore dresses until they were about 7 years old and they grew their hair long and then they cut it short. So this is still a very recent phenomenon. So that's the color of pink and blue, how it was born. Fast forward to the mid-80s when women could, or parents could find out the sex of their child through prenatal testing, and now baby showers took on a whole new life. And really pink and blue started to get more extreme. So at this point, toys started to get more gendered, clothing more gendered. You start to see things like girls be about sparkles and about being pretty, and boys being about strong, adventurous with guns and trucks. And continue moving in the wrong direction. I think even if you look at social media right now with gender reveal parties, it's getting even more outrageous, where people are having gender reveal parties. And if you think about it, somebody jumping out of an airplane with a blue parachute to say it's a boy, or a pink confetti if it's a girl. What's so interesting about this is they're talking about the sex of their child. Your gender is your identity, and it's how you identify once you become an adult. So it's time to stop gender reveal parties and let young people figure out who they are and what their gender is when they grow up.
There's a whole variety of experiences that people have that cause them to question, like, hey, maybe I don't actually fit into the definition of, man or woman, and that there's something else.
Hi, I'm Danny, and I identify as non-binary.
I'm Lindsay, and I identify as non-binary.
My name is Feng. I identify as non-gendered person.
I'm Francois. I identify as genderqueer.
My name is James, and I identify as non-binary.
Non-binary is someone whose gender doesn't fall within the context of the binary that we set up in society.
I am not male, I'm not female, I'm somewhere floating around in there.
Non-binary means acknowledging a wider range of experience.
For me, it means that I'm not identified with any specific gender, like male, female, or other things.
It's part of a larger kind of goal of questioning these assumptions about gender and questioning why there only need to be two.
It gives me the freedom to express myself. If I wake up one day and I want to spike my hair and do punk rock makeup, I can do it.
Every couple of decades, some designer decides that men's shorts are, suddenly 5 inches shorter or 5 inches longer. In the 70s, if you look at what men were wearing, they were like Rockettes, like shorts were up to here, and now it's like get it, down to the knee. Non-binary is freedom from that whole game. It's like I don't care what the men's department at Marshall's suddenly has decided that like men need to wear. I'm gonna go for what makes me feel more authentic.
I tend to say gender is dependent on context and point of view.
To me, it just makes me comfortable that I can just be this body that I have.
I identified as a cis gay male. Cisgender is when your gender identity aligns with the gender that you were assigned at birth based on your anatomy. I saw myself as a cis man and just thought, well, I paint my nails and I wear lipstick, but I'm a cis man. And I knew what genderqueer was and non-binary. I knew of them, and I was like, I support it, I love it, but it's over there, that's not me.
I identified as male before. I didn't really ever feel comfortable fitting into the masculine or male environments or just seeing myself as a man.
I have always had questions as a child. I always would put on my mother's makeup and her lipstick.
I identified quite a while before I came out to people.
I started identifying as non-binary when I was 17. I just knew that calling myself a woman and calling myself a girl did not feel accurate and did not feel good and did not feel like a home to me at that time in my life anymore.
Most people are still very confused about trans identity, non-binary, gender fluid.
Even though it's 2019, it's not something that everybody runs and be like, oh, you're genderqueer, yay, hugs and kisses, we love you still.
The hardest thing about coming out at 17 is no one believes you. Everyone is like, wow, that's a really cute phase you're having.
Even when I'm saying what I identify with, people still have a specific imagination of what that means.
Most people are going to assume that you're one of two genders, a man or a woman, and so every single day you have to be correcting them and you have to be declaring that you're non-binary to pretty much every new person that you meet.
People often misgender me. Like the second I leave New York, I get called ma'am, like to my face.
A lot of times people will get pronouns right twice, and then I find it's often the third time that people start slipping.
A lot of people think that we're transitioning for some reason.
Some people say, oh, so are you going through transition right now? And some people ask me, so do you still have a vagina?
Simplest way to ask about gender if you don't know someone is,
hey friend, what are your pronouns? That's it.
A lot of us are very different. Some people are like, don't misgender me, and it's a big thing. And I understand that, really, I do.
Personally, I'm always very open and happy to talk to people about it.
I remember a few times I went on job interviews and I dressed like how I am. And I did very, very well in the first interview. And they're like, oh, you did so well. Just when you come next time, can you dress like a boy? It's especially challenging in dating.
No one really knows how to deal with you and whether they're allowed to be attracted to you, really.
Some people, they just say they want to date men.
The worst is whenever someone's like, well, yeah, but you have a penis, right? People will be very fixated with anatomical gender.
You can't be seen as heterosexual, you can't be seen as homosexual. And so when you try to date a girl, it's like, you're too feminine, and you're not masculine enough. And you try to date a guy who's gay, and he's like, you're not masculine enough, or you're too feminine, or something. It's always something.
I think people's knowledge of this is definitely getting a lot better with time.
We're becoming more relatable. People are seeing us for who we are. And so I think that brings about this general air of acceptance.
I think the future of gender identity, hopefully, is one where we don't force the binary on everybody.
I think the future of gender identity is so much more like colorful and wide and different and like varied as we think it even can be.
I hope that the future will move towards more of individual expression rather than this mob mentality to follow the crowd to be like everybody else.
I definitely wish that we can all just pass through this phase of trying to categorize people and just take them as what they are.
Being able to reclaim our narratives, I think that's the next step, is that trans voices are the ones speaking for trans people and non-binary voices become the ones speaking for non-binary people.
Dear Mom and Dad, I need to tell you something. I know that you love and support me, but this feels like a really big deal. I'm writing you because I'm coming out as non-binary. It's hard to explain what being non-binary is because everyone's experience is different. It's a gender identification somewhere between or outside the male-female binary. I know someone who says gender is more like constellations than a spectrum, which I really like. It makes identity feel more three-dimensional and complex. As I've met more transgender and gender non-conforming people this year, I've been thinking a lot about my own identity and how I conceptualize my own gender. A couple months ago, I heard someone refer to me as she, as people have my whole life. And for some reason, it felt strange, like they were calling me the wrong name. And just for a second, I was confused who they were talking about. Since then, that's happened more and more. It happened so fast that I'm still figuring it out, and I'm not really sure where I'm going to come out on the other side. A few weeks ago, I asked people to start using they, them pronouns for me, so I could hear how it sounded. And it feels so much better and so much more right. I know that using gender-neutral pronouns for a singular person is a shift, but it's not a shift that's impossible. It just takes attention and work. And working on this would help me feel more comfortable around you and at home. I love you. I miss you. I'm excited to see you soon.
Dear Saga, we love you, all of you. We love who you are and who you have been and who you are becoming. Thank you for sharing your coming out with us. I imagine it's something of a process, maybe one that isn't finished yet. Dad and I want to figure out how to be supportive and what we need to learn. It seems like what you need from us is a change in vocabulary. You just need us to refer to you differently with non-gendered pronouns and words. Is that right? I hope you feel loved and supported at school. I send you many hugs.
Dear Mom, I don't know how to say the things I want to say because I know you're trying and I don't want to hurt you. I love you, and I know you love me, and also I'm angry. When there are family and friends and neighbors in our house, I need you to stand up for me. I know that it's hard, and I understand that feeling of wondering whether it's even worth correcting people, and I often feel like I can't correct people without feeling like a burden, which is why I need your help. I need your support on this, because if I don't have it, you are one more person that I have to convince that my identity is real. Getting misgendered feels like losing a part of myself, and the space left over feels so empty. I feel so guilty telling you that I'm not your daughter, like I'm taking something from you that you earned, but I'm not. You are my mother, and I love you just as much as I ever have, but I'm not your daughter. Maybe I never have been. I'm still your child, though. I'm still here. I love you. I really do.
Dear Saga, I'm really sad to hear how misgendered you felt by us. I know we didn't always correct other people, but I thought I was doing better. When friends stop by and they call you a young woman or they use she in referring to you, it's difficult to insist that they use a different pronoun. It would mean having a whole conversation about what non-binary means when they just stopped by to bring a plate of Christmas cookies. Trying to convince them to see you and think about you differently than last time they saw you is often more than there's time for. You talked about how painful it is to be misgendered. I don't want to be causing pain for you or any transgender person, but I've long assumed I could tell who was male and who was female just by appearance. Is being non-binary in part a pushback against this assumption? I guess I'm asking whether being non-binary, identifying as non-binary, is in part a solidarity choice to be part of a movement against gender roles and stereotypes. This morning, I realized I keep asking you questions as if I'm trying to figure out who you are now and who you have become. I don't know if this is entirely right, but I had an idea I wanted to tell you about. Just because you found a name for how you understand yourself doesn't mean you've changed into a different person. I realized that you aren't suddenly non-binary. Non-binary is who you are and who you have been, and that change is in finding the place to fit, not in you. When you put a puzzle piece in place, it doesn't mean that the piece has suddenly changed shape. It means you found the right place for it within a whole puzzle full of different shapes. Your push to see gender differently is reshaping my thinking every day. I really value that. I appreciate your patience with my learning, and I love having you as my teacher. I'm proud that you are, if not my daughter, my child, my offspring. I could call you my duckling.
Dear Mom, I'm having trouble breathing. Everything collapsed yesterday. I've been trying to get out of bed all day, but I can't do it. I don't know why everything is changing now or how it changed so fast, but it did and it is, and I don't know what to do. You know how I told you that even though I'm trans and non-binary, I'm happy with my body the way it is? I don't want to change anything. I don't know if that's true anymore. Yesterday, I woke up and tried to get dressed, but when I saw myself in the mirror, I collapsed. I felt so sick. I started shaking, and I put on a big sweatshirt and got back into bed and couldn't get back out. I've had a recurring dream every night this week. I'm standing in front of the mirror, and I'm holding sandpaper. And I'm sanding down my chest and my hips and my cheeks. I love my body. I love it very much. I think my body is beautiful. It just doesn't feel like mine anymore. I want someone else to have this beautiful body. I feel like I've always known who I was, and that it's always included womanhood, and now that's gone, and I'm not sure what to hold on to. I've been talking to some people about binders and top surgery. I know the idea of me getting surgery might be really scary because it might feel like I'm losing something or sacrificing something that's a part of me. But that's not it at all. I'm not losing anything. It's that there's a chest underneath the one I have now that I have always wanted to feel. I'm not losing, I'm uncovering. Surgery isn't what every trans or non-binary person wants. It isn't the goal or the end or what makes you trans. It won't make me who I am or complete me or make everything okay. But I think it might be what I want. I don't know how to write this down. I don't know how to navigate wanting to love my own body and wanting it to be different. Can I have both of those things? I'm sorry. I'm scared. And I love you. Your duckling.
Oh, Saga, I'm so sorry to read about your pain. It sounds terrifying and alone. I wish I were there with you. Do you have close friends that are understanding and nearby to hold you? What do you need most from me, from us as parents? I always thought I was pretty good at knowing intuitively what you needed and how to support you, but now I'm at a loss. How can I give you back the confidence that you are loved and valued? Dear Saga, you and I flew to Amsterdam a few days ago to give a research paper at an academic conference. We were excited to travel together and to share our ideas about gender and ethics with my colleagues. But I've failed you. You've made it clear that I'm not adequately standing up for you. I'm not correcting people when they misgender you, and I'm not insisting that they recognize you as non-binary. I've been letting too much slide by. This afternoon, you sat down on a curb and sobbed. You asked me whether anyone would ever see you for who you are, whether anyone would love you for who you are. What can I do? I don't know the answers to these questions. At this moment, I love you desperately, but I know that I am not a stand-in for all the love and assurance you long for. My love is not enough for what you need to get through this life. Maybe not even enough to get you through this trip.
Dear Mom, I am learning how to love again. I am learning how to love and be loved by trans people and as a trans person. I am learning how to ask for that love, how to offer it, how to feel safe. I have always felt like I had to perform femininity in order to be seen as attractive or desirable, and now I am learning a new vocabulary. I wonder if anyone will want to be close to me if I get surgery, if I take hormones, when it's not as easy to pretend that I'm someone I'm not because what I feel like will poke through what I look like. I'm afraid transitioning will mean losing everything, not just surgery and hormones, but cutting my hair, dressing differently. It feels true, but it also feels limiting, like it's the only thing anyone sees. I need you to tell me that everything will be okay, that I'm worth loving, that you trust me and believe me and know I will make the right choices. I need you to see me. Your support makes a difference. Studies show that when trans youth can use their chosen names, their risk of attempting suicide goes down 65%. I understand that this is complicated, that you don't mean to box myself in or make any decisions I regret, but I need you to believe me, because your support could make the difference in whether I'm here at all.
Dear Saga, I'm working on trusting your judgment about what you need for your own well-being. This must be a stage that many parents go through as their kids make the transition to adulthood. I want to avoid being annoying and intrusive by asking questions that communicate doubt about your ability to make good decisions. But the choices you are facing about how to be who you are and whether to change your body are huge and consequential. Thinking about other decisions you have made and what kinds of risks you take in your life, I realize that you are not much of a risk taker. You are very careful and cautious with your body. These are good evidence of your judgment that I should rely on. I will support whatever decisions you make, and I will be there with you. I do trust your confidence and your inner strength. I know that you have done careful research. I choose to believe in you and in your ability to know what's right for you. I do love you more than you can imagine.
Dear Mom, today I will get gender-affirming surgery, and you will be there with me. 3 days ago, Dad asked me about the surgery center's last-minute cancellation policy. I told him I didn't know it because I wouldn't need to. For months, I've been getting ready, preparing my body for healing and staying healthy. 2 days ago, we flew to Texas, rented a car, picked up my prescriptions. This morning, we will wake up early and go to the surgery center, and I will be less nervous than I thought I would be. After they wheel me away, you will sit in the waiting room with my partner for 2 hours before you take me home. I will be happy because of the surgery and because of the anesthesia. I will cry a lot. I will tell you I love you. I will say hello to the world out the car window and fall asleep eating animal crackers. I won't remember most of it. It will all be okay. My body will heal, and I will heal, and will get home safe, and I will be very happy and very sad and try on all my clothes and get angry at myself for not being able to carry things and wish I could heal faster. And sometimes I'll forget that my body is different than it used to be. And most of the time, I won't think about it at all. And that will be the biggest gift.